that we have up in the lineup is Dr. Ann. She has 30 years of psychology, correct? She is a phenomenal speaker, and she helps a lot of her clients that deal with anxiety and trauma and a lot of childhood issues. And I definitely want to sit back and enjoy everything that she has to say.
Thanks very much, Nick. Okay, I'll just check. Can you put the screen share on, please, Barky? No, fabulous. Okay, so I'm Dr. Ann, and as Nick said, I am a psychologist with 30 years experience. So it was interesting that you talked about what we see on TV. I'm probably showing my age, but this was what I was brought up to believe was a family. This was, you can see the Ingalls family there. They're out west in probably a pretty hard environment, but there was Dad, who was an honourable man, and Mum, who raised the children, and everything was pretty stable. Then we've got, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, West Philadelphia. Yeah, I actually remembered the song today when I was actually put the picture up. And he moves and he goes to a very affluent, educated family. And you see the stability, and everybody gets on well, and everybody's appreciated and honoured for their own individuality. Now, you'll see that what it kind of says is family fiction, because what I work with is actually the reality. I work with adults who have generally survived extreme adverse childhood events. And that comes from whether it's parental issues, alcohol, crime, mental illness, divorce. And my clients come to me because, they're bearing the wounds of these childhoods. And I too was one, kind of why I ended up in the work I do. So these were the models I had, because what I saw in my house wasn't this at all. But I thought, okay, well, this is what I want to emulate. But, there's this tension here. So what are we really talking about? So this is a piece of research I looked at today, and this is the most common stats. Family and domestic violence is a common problem. In the USA, we're estimated 10 million people every year are victims. It's 1 in 4 women. That's 1 in 9 men. All races, all ages, all sexes. And I can vouch for that because I see everybody. No culture, no socioeconomic, every education, no religion is, not involved, no geographical limitation, and all sexual orientations. So heterosexual, homosexual, it doesn't really matter. So that's the adults. So what happens is, what about the children who are in these environments? Approximately 45 million children in the US will be exposed to violence during childhood. That's 1 in 10 are seeing domestic violence annually. 25, 1 in 4 will see one event during their lifetime. 90% direct witnesses of violence in the home. And men who batter their wives, 30 to 60% of the time, they also batter their children. So it doesn't stop with dad battering mum. If he's doing that, there's a good chance the children are also at the receiving end of the fists. And again, I can definitely vouch for that in my clients. So what is a domestic violence? It's defined by the CDC as physical violence, sexual violence, stalking, psychological aggression, coercive acts by a current or former intimate partner. Now, I definitely see predominantly psychological aggression. So all of my clients describe living as though they're walking on eggshells. It's bullying, it's gaslighting, it is a constant domination and battlefield where the children and the mothers, generally mothers, but again, we've seen 1 in 9 men are being controlled by a dominant, malevolent force in that household. The physical violence is the last stop on the railway. Okay, it's like if that doesn't work, if I can't control you by my mental power, if you still come at me, well, then I will I will resort to physical aggression. What happens to the children? Well, they have increased PTSD. They have aggressive behavior, anxiety, because their fight flight is completely, over aroused. They have problems in their development because who can concentrate on school and just getting through life when what's happening at home is so unstable. And they also have an increased incidence of substance abuse. So across the board, we see that domestic violence in the home in all of its forms has a definite significant knock-on effect. What happens then? The children who've witnessed it also have an increased risk of dating violence and a more difficult time with partnerships and parenting. And that's when I see them. I see them as they come into adulthood, and they are often trying to get out of very difficult adult relationships, or they're in very difficult divorces. So they've gone through the whole conveyor belt and they've picked partners that are, aren't healthy. And what does that mean? Well, it means the males are learning that the females are not equal, and they're more likely to abuse females in adulthood. And the women, the females who are witnessing the children who are witnessing domestic violence as children, are more likely to be victimized by their spouses. So they're repeating the pattern. They're not learning that love is not related to aggression, violence, and control. When mummy is being hit and then says later, don't worry about it, daddy loves mummy really, then it's understandable they get a bit confused there. And all of my clients have been gaslit by their parents when they've witnessed violence, because afterwards they've been told that really it wasn't that bad after all. And I can assure you, every child knows exactly the difference between right and wrong, and that injury and that moral rage they will carry into adulthood. So what are we talking about? People who become abusive, they're learning it in their family, their community, their culture. They see the violence. They're also victims of violence. They have become traumatized. This is definitely not to excuse it, because it can become so endemic and so significantly reinforced that what happens is it almost becomes a cultural choice. This is how men and women interrelate. This is what normality is. Now, this one I want you to think about, because if you are working with young people, this is really important. What it says is 12 to 19-year-olds who experience violence, only a third will report it. That means 2/3 of those children that you're working with will be closed down, will be belligerent, will be disconnected because they are literally traumatized. So when we see the kids who aren't going to school because, quite frankly, school doesn't cater for what happens in their home, when we see the kid who's hanging out on the street because being at home is actually not a great choice because I don't want to go through that again, I'd rather get out of here. When you see the kid who is sullen, it's not necessarily because they are just going through some sort of teenage playing out. There's also a very good chance that what you're seeing is a result of trauma. So as youth workers, anybody who is, who's really talking and trying to engage with young people, you've got to remember you're not really thinking about who, am I likely to know somebody who's gone through this? The real question you're asking is, who do I know that's gone through this? Every client I get, it never starts as domestic violence. They never come to me for that. They come to me because they want to know about their relationships and why it's going wrong. And within a couple of months, sometimes much sooner, it always resorts to this. What was happening in the home, how violence played out, whether it was between mum and dad or whether they were on the receiving end. And often the shame associated with it is off the scale. They don't want to talk about it. They would rather do anything but face that. It's the big, dirty family secret. So when we're working with you young people, we have to just remember, this isn't it. This isn't their experience. This is the story we got told. This is the fiction we got told. And when you didn't live that, when you didn't have that in your home, it is so, so difficult to say it. But you've seen the numbers. This isn't an insignificant issue. This is across the board in every single walk of life. So thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Anne from My Freedom to Thrive. If anyone wants to reach out, then they're more than welcome. They can email me or follow me on Instagram.